Hey, in this video, I'm going to show you how to do session tracking with JSP, and in particular, we'll cover the coding portion of it. Now, just as a quick refresher, let's look at the app that we're going to code. So again, remember the demo, you can add a new item and we'll display the list here at the bottom. So I can type in a new item like buy groceries, click on the submit button, and it'll show up there at the bottom in my to-do list. And I can add one more item here, go to gym, and again. Now remember, the to-do list is actually saved in our session object. So it's a unique object for each browser or user of our application. And I'll actually show you how to write all of the coding for this from scratch in this video. You know how I love to-do lists. So here, the first thing we need to do is create the HTML form. Then the second thing we need to do is add the new item to the to-do list. And then finally, we need to display all to-do items from the session object. All right, so a lot of good stuff here, and we'll actually write all the code for this from scratch. All right, so just moving into Eclipse, the first thing we need to do is create a new file. So in our web content folder, we'll just do a right click, we'll say new file. And I'll give the name of this file here. I'll call it to-do list demo.jsp. And once I'm happy with the name, I'll click on the finish button. All right, so we have our empty page here. We'll start off with our normal HTML body tags. And now what I want to do is just write out some comments as far as our major steps in our to-do list. So step 1, we need to create the HTML form. And then in step 2, we need to add the new item to the to-do list. And then for step 3, we need to display all to-do items from the session. So this is our basic game plan here for building out the code. And again, we'll write all the code for this from scratch in this video. All right, so let's start with step 1, creating the HTML form. So the first thing we need to do is set up the form. We'll set the action equals to to-do demo.jsp. So basically, this page will submit data right back to itself. All right, because our file is called to-do demo.jsp. So we're going to submit data right back to ourselves. And I'll show you how to handle reading the form data. But what I'll do here is I'll set up this input text for the item. So that's where the user will enter their to-do item. And then I'll also set up another input type here for submit. So this is for the actual submit button. And that's it. That's our basic HTML form for reading in a to-do list item along with a submit button. And then just as a basic test harness here, I simply want to display that form data just to verify that I can actually read the data that they passed in. So here I'll just say item entered, and then I'll say request.getParameter, the item. So that'll actually read the form data. And that's the same name as the field up here on line 7 as far as the name. So we're basically reading that form field and printing the information out. Now, the first time we show this page, that value will be null, but we'll fill it in with some real information as we submit data. All right, so let's run it. Let's just right click on that file, say run as, and run on server. All right, so again, here's our form here. Notice the item entered is null, but once I submit data, then we see that new form field show up. So go to the store, do the laundry, and so on. So we know that our form's working properly, and we know that our JSP can display that form data. So this looks really good so far. All right, so let's move down to step number 2. And here we need to actually add the new item to the to-do list. So one thing we're going to make use of is we're going to make use of collections, or we'll make use of an array list. We'll say get the to-do items from the session. If the items doesn't exist, then we're actually going to create a new one. And we'll also see if there's any form data that needs to be added. So that's our basic game plan here for step number 2. All right, so one thing we're going to need to use is a lot of classes from the Java util package. So let me just move to the top of this file and just do an import on the package java.util. So again, we do the angle bracket % with an @ symbol, and we say page import equals javautil.star. So this will give me everything in the Java util package, like list, array list, so on and so forth. And we'll use that a lot in this JSP page. So the import here will help us out and save us on some of the typing. The first thing I need to do here is get the items from the sessions. So I'll say list string items equals list string for downcasting it. So we're going to have a list of type string, and we say session.getAttribute and we give the name. And here again, we can give any name as long as we're consistent. So for the name, I'll call it my to-do list. So this will use that built-in session object, say getAttribute for a given name, my to-do list, and downcast it accordingly. Now, first I need to make sure that it exists or not. So if it doesn't exist, then I need to create a new one. So if items equals null, then that means I need to create a new list. So here I say items equals new array list string. So this will basically give me an array list of that can hold string items. And now I'm going to actually add this list to the session. So I'll say session.setAttribute, and then I give the name. And again, I'm going to use the same name that I use for retrieving it, my to-do list. And I simply say setAttribute, my to-do list, comma, items. And so this handles, making sure that we have an item in the session. If not, we create a new one, and then we set that list on the session. Now, the next thing we need to do is see if there's form data to add. So I just use that method request.getParameter, and I use the parameter name of the item. So that's the actual form field that we had earlier in this exercise. And then I simply say, if the item is not equal to null, then that means that we have some data and we can actually add that data. So I'm going to add this data to the list of items. So here we say items.add, and we pass in the item. And again, remember items is the array list, and the item is the actual form data that we read in. So we're basically just adding something to that existing list, and it'll simply build over time. And remember, the array list is more like a growable array. We can simply add multiple items to it. All right, so we're almost there. The final step here, step 3, display all to-do items from the session. So first off, let me just give you some basic HTML markup, just like a little header here, to-do list items, all that good stuff. Put a break there. And now what I need to do is build a bullet list of items. So here I make use of OL, it's HTML tag for ordered list. And this will basically give us a numbered list, basically. And now I'll add a scriptlet, and I'm going to loop through that array list, and then for each item, simply print it out. So here I say string temp : items, that's our list. And then I do an out.println, which is another built-in object that we can use for printing directly to that JSP page. So here I'll say out.println li temp plus /li. So that's li is for list item. So this will basically help us build a numbered list or an ordered list of items for the HTML page. We'll do this dynamically on the fly based on whatever's in the to-do list. All right, so this looks really good so far. So I think we're pretty much done. Oh yeah, just some cleanup here on lines 14 and 15. Remove that code. We don't need this anymore. That was more of just a test. So I just rip that out or delete that code. I save my file. And now we can move back to the browser. The only thing I need to do is just remove those parameters from the end of this URL. So everything after the question mark, I can simply highlight and hit the delete key on, and then just hit enter. That'll refresh the page. All right, so at this point, add new item. My to-do list items is null, or empty actually. I'll add a new item here. Mow the yard, hit submit. So it's adding it to our to-do list. Wash the dishes, submit. And record more Java videos. Come on, buddy, get on the stick. So I need to record more videos. I also need to write a lot of code. So let me just add this in here. So I crank out some more code. That's what this is all about. And so that's it. So notice here how we're building a list. It's keeping track of everything, and it works out pretty good. And hopefully at the end of tonight, I can actually get some sleep. We'll see. But again, we're making use of session tracking. We're keeping track of all of our to-do list items in the session. So these items are unique for this given browser user. If I opened up a different browser, I'd see a totally different list that will be empty. And we can basically keep track of all the unique actions for a given user. So that's kind of session tracking in a nutshell. Good job.